So when we turn, just try and turn from here rather than the shoulders. So try not to throw the shoulders round. Just try to turn from here. Yeah? So the turn is really one hip going forwards and the other one going back. So your hips are actually doing this, but that's actually causing a turning action. So remember, if you're doing it right, then your arms are lagging the hips, not leading them. So 1, 2. Just fall into the magic of turning. So when you're turning, you're just letting your head go. So everything becomes a blur because everything's moving. And you just feel swaddled. You know, it's like you're surrounded, you're being enveloped all the time by your own turns. Yeah, so it's very much like a baby being rocked in its mother's arms. So the baby just falls asleep, it just falls into its own center, just surrounded by this beautiful movement. So this is what we want. So the turning brings us back to a quiet center. So this is like the paradox of it, really. By moving, I find stillness. That's it, that's good. Yeah, so this exercise is really just for splitting the mind and the body. So the body is being flung outwards by centrifugal force, but the mind is being drawn inwards. So we have to make sure that we maintain a balance between those. So we don't want to be too outward and we don't want to be too extravagant with our turning. Otherwise, everything will be thrown out of the mind as well. That's it. And just try and feel the feet holding on to the ground rather than pushing you up from it. So my feet are more like a monkey's feet, you know, that can grab things. So I'm holding myself down with the legs rather than pushing myself up. So each turn drags me downwards. So it's all yielding really. Each turn is a yield. So I'm yielding from here, I'm yielding from here. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so it's all embracing. You're yielding, you're making a hole and a space and wrapping your arms around it. So here, I'm yielding here, and this arm is going around the space that I'm creating. So I'm creating this enveloping space all the time. Okay, now let's come to here. Okay, now let's just go up and down, but we want to go down because I'm pulling something up. So it's like I'm trying, so just think of the knees, yeah? So I'm trying to lift my knees up, but of course they won't come up. So it actually pulls me down. And then here, I'm squeezing down in order to push myself up. Here, I'm pulling up with my feet and my knees. And here, I'm pushing down. So the action is in the feet. The feet are trying to lift off the ground, but of course they won't because there's gravity. So it pulls me down. The feet are trying to push into the ground, and that's pulling me, pushing me up. So here, pulling, pushing, pulling, pushing, pulling, pushing, pulling, pushing. So what we're trying to feel really is how the pulling phase is the yielding phase. So when I pull, I'm basically just making this hole, I'm making a riding horse. So riding horse isn't really something that you settle into, it's something you pull yourself into. So sinking into riding horse has to be active. There's a sense that my knees are trying to pull up, and that's pulling me down. So my spine is being pulled down, and my knees are trying to raise up. So there's this natural circuit going on between you and the imaginary other, where your energy's coming up their body and then cascading down your own, by virtue of the fact that you've actually pulled yourself down rather than just let yourself sink down. And then you just push up, so you just reverse that. And then here. So as I sink down, as I actually pull myself down actively, all of these structures open up, these yielding, open empty spaces within me open up. So this is what we're just looking at today. So pull and push. And just think of either the feet or the knees. Yes, so have your mind there in your connection with the ground. So pulling the feet up, which pulls me down because the ground's not going to move. Pushing my feet down, which brings me up. Pull and push. Pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. So just feel how as you pull yourself down, you naturally become round and you billow out, and you billow out into these containing spaces. Whereas here, you just sort of, you emanate out in like straight lines as you come up, and as you pull yourself down, you become surrounded by all these concentric circles. So this is the roundness, if you like, and this is the straight attack. So this is yielding, and this is pushing away, and this is pulling together. So your relationship with the ground is exactly the same as your relationship with the other, or any relationship. So in order to make a connection, you need to just make a welcoming space. So the same way you would open your arms to hug someone, the same thing is happening with your legs. Yeah? So when you hug someone, you don't just push your hands out like that, because that will push them away from you. You open up a space, and that space has to be like a negative space. So it has to be a space that they can fall into, not a space that's full of yourself, because that will keep them out. So you open the arms, you create like a vacuum here that sucks the other person in, so that your arms can reach around them into an embrace. So what we're looking at really is just, it's exactly the same thing with the ground. So when I sink and relax, it's actually quite active if I do it properly, because I'm pulling myself down. So I'm pulling my legs into this round embrace, which is hugging the ground, in the same way that my arms here on a perpendicular plane are hugging the other person. So what we're trying to catch now really is just how this has to be slightly active. It can't just be a passive sinking. So it's not just me letting go to gravity. I have to pull myself into this actively. So I have to really want that connection. It's not something that just happens. So I have to actively suck the ground up into me. This is, I remember John explaining it once, saying, the Chinese idea of a root is of something of you going down into the ground. So this will be this phase. So here I'm injecting into the ground, and that is tending to send my feet out like this. Yeah? So my feet tend to be pushing away from each other when I push myself up. Now, what for him, he felt the root as not as himself going into the ground, but as the ground coming up into him. So that's this phase. So here, when you're pulling the ground, your feet feel like they're trying to pull towards each other. And then when you push the ground, your feet are pushing away from each other. So here, pulling in. So we want to feel how just that simple click, it's like there's a sudden burst of spirit which actually starts you pulling yourself, like you have to yank at a rope to make sure it's secure so that you can put your weight on it. There's a little click at the beginning. And that actually springs everything open. Everything is sprung open into this roundness. And so when you're pulling, it starts with a snap, if you like. It starts with a snap of spirit. When you push, it starts slowly and gradually. So this is sort of lazy and sort of oozing up. And then this is something in me has to snap myself open in order to get into the next phase. Yeah. So this is easy. This is just oozing, like a thick liquid oozing. And this is like a gaseous state. So here, just feel those two different moods. So this is almost half asleep, and then this is very much awake. So the feet trying to pull together just a little bit, and here the feet trying to push apart. Pulling, pushing. That's it. Pulling and pushing. Pull. Push. Pull. Push. Pull. Push. Okay, great. So now let's have slightly narrower step. And now just sort of sit down into your posture. So here we're just trying to feel the head suspended. Yeah. So the important thing with the head suspended, it's not really the head, it's the sacrum. So you want the feeling that the sacrum is just hanging like a plum on the end of a plumb line. You know, like a piece of lead on the end of the string that the builder uses to test verticals. So this is heavy. The back, so not the dantian, the actual sacrum. So that is heavy and it is hanging down behind you. So it's very much behind. So we feel this suspended so that we can get that hanging sacrum true. Yeah, so you've just got to work it, move it around, twist it, turn it, and just feel the amount of tension that you need to hold here to stop this from happening, to stop your belly flopping forwards, so that it is your sacrum that's hanging down. So the feeling is that the spine is dropping all the way down to the ground behind the legs. And then the knees, they feel like they want to rise up. There's something about my sinking down the spine that just makes the knee want to rise. So if I can keep this suspended, heavy sacrum feeling, then this knee will want to rise up. The knee of the empty leg. So I'm just sinking. So what I'm trying to do is release the knee by dropping my sacrum down. So basically what's happening is the lower back is becoming slightly flatter. So here, so something in me just releases down, and this just naturally comes up. And then here, something behind me is slipping down, and that enables this to come up. So what makes it difficult is that we have to try and use energy rather than force. So basically force sees things as solids that are exerting against each other, objects pushing and pulling. So here we want to think in terms of flows of some liquid or some fluid. So my sacrum is flowing down. It's sinking. It hasn't just reached a level and then stopped. It's actually dropping down. And it never stops. That flow downwards never stops. And the same as this knee coming up, that's a flow upwards that never stops. So this is basically energy. Energy it doesn't stop, and it goes in both directions. So part of me is sinking, part of me is rising. And then the mind is just somewhere in the middle, just trying to manage this balance, trying to manage the equilibrium. As soon as the mind drifts off, then these will tend to freeze, and you'll just have a forceful, hard situation. So softness and energy belong together, and hardness and force belong together. So as soon as something hardens, becomes solid, then you've only got forces at your disposal, really, because energy won't flow through. So if you want it to become energetic, you just have to become soft and fluid. So this is dropping down, and this is rising up. So even though there's no net movement, the energy is still flowing, the mind is still flowing. So sinking down the back. That's what's difficult. We tend to sink like this. If we're just sitting down into my leg, letting the spine extend downwards. So it's almost like I want to sort of avoid the leg with my spine. My spine wants to drop down behind the leg. Almost like my sacrum is settled on the ground and into the ground. So the legs are very much attached to the front of you, and then here up. Whoa. Yes, of course, this is just sort of golden moose. So I've got to sink down the back and just allow this to come up. So I find like just pointing my finger helps the energy. So this finger is with the knee, this finger is with my sacrum. Yeah, so it's not really the object that's important, it's how it's moving. And that's what's moving. So as soon as something moves, it has a slightly fluid quality. It's flowing, even if it's moving clumsily and lumpily. Again, down, the sacrum down, and the knee up. Great. Okay. So now let's just stand like this again. But just with the same feeling. With the same feeling of your sacrum wanting to drop down between your legs now because we're double weighted. And that drop down creating a flow of energy upwards in front of you. So if I want energy to lift upwards, then I just have to sink downwards. It's like to make that leap from working in a normal way with forces and with solids to actually working with energy. It's an enormous leap. It's a different dimension. So when you actually can relax the mind and just let it spring open in exactly the same way that we did when we were pulling ourselves down, then it's like terror sets in. Yeah, the world becomes very much a difficult balance, fraught balance. So wow. So suddenly the world becomes different than than your other mind knows it to be. So it's full of possibilities and dangers. Okay. And now let's just work with the feet on the ground. So just trying. So what we want to do is do this exercise where we pull the belly in and release it, but by working with the ground. So what I want to do is try and, so think of my hands being my 2 feet on the ground. So what I want to do is just turn the toes towards each other. And of course, the feet we don't move the feet, we try to. Yeah? So I try to turn the toes towards each other. And that just opens up across the back and just draws this in a little bit. And then I try and twist the toes outwards. And that has the opposite effect. So I'm just working the legs, trying to twist my feet on the ground. And just allowing the effect of that to filter through my body. So here, this is the pulling phase, but now I'm working more on twisting the toes in. And then here, trying to twist. You don't have to, it's not something you have to work hard at. It's something you just have to see So you don't want to twist so hard that you just get exhausted. So if you do get tired, it's more like just an energy tired. It's like you just shattered because you've just opened up so much. So here, twisting the toes in, and then twisting. If you do it with your hands, then your legs will tend to follow suit. So the legs are always a little bit behind. And what we would like is for them to actually be in front. What we would like is for everything to happen from the feet. So the feet actually lead everything I do. But for that, we have to really sort of relax the legs and make them very active. So this is just part of trying to get that going. So here I'm twisting the toes round. And then I'm pulling the toes in. Twisting out. Pulling in. Twisting out. Yeah, so this is this phase, and then pulling in is just this phase. So rather than just working from here, now we're just working from the feet, but it's getting the same sort of effect. But it's quite different. It's sort of less in the control of my mind, really. And the body sort of opens up in a way that it doesn't when I work from my down chair. So pulling. Yeah, so we're just reconceptualizing the waist. So we normally think of the waist as being like a circle around here. Now we want to feel it as two circles, one round each hip, that are turning normally like this or like this. Yeah, so they're rolling each other around. So here I'm pulling the toes together, pushing the heels apart, and that's rolling my two hips like this. And then I'm reversing it, pushing the toes out and pulling the heels together, and that's rolling like this. So pull, push, pull. And so here you obviously can see how you're drawing energy in, and then here you're pushing energy out. But we're trying to get it from the action of the foot on the ground more than anywhere else. This is what's difficult. So we're just trying to wake the legs up to other ways of working. So they're normally working by just either holding me up passively, supporting me, like a pillar, or they're just walking around, relatively ignorant of what they're doing. Like a slave. If you give a slave orders, then it's not terribly enthusiastic about what it has to do. So you don't really get the best energy out of it. Whereas if you can make the slave interested in what it is that you want them to do, then they'll tend to put their best energy into it. So this is just basically what we're trying to do with the legs, is just wake them up to different ways of working. Because the legs are the strongest part of my body. So to get the strongest part of my body being depressed is not very clever, really. We just want the legs to be really active and excitable. So twisting the feet on the ground and pulling the toes together. Twisting and pulling. Twisting. That's it. So just try and what we're trying to do all the time, I mean, I harp on about this, but it's the only way I have explaining it to people, is basically to become aroused, just allow the energy to arouse you. And so we all have sexual experience. It may be a long time ago, so you may have to dig back in your memory. But you know, so that experience of just being with someone, and it's on one level. It's just, you know, you're just together, you like each other and everything. And then there's a switch. Something switches, and suddenly it enters a different realm. It enters a completely different reality. Yeah? And it becomes sexual. Yeah. So that's basically what we're wanting with the work that we do here. Not for it to get into a sexual realm, but for it to enter a different reality, a different dimension. So I'm working with the feet in order to get myself roused up, if you like, rather than aroused. In the same way that, like a boxer, before he goes into the ring to fight his deadly opponent, his deadly enemy, will actually rouse himself. You know, so sportsmen are experts at rousing their own spirit. And that's what we want to do. So here I'm using the ground as something to fight against in a way, to actually rouse my spirit, so that what I'm doing can enter an energetic realm that I'm not normally in when I'm being civilized and polite and depressed. Then I'm not there. So here I become a bit like an animal or a fighter. So what we're trying to do today is just get it from the feet. Is my feet fighting with the ground? You know, I'm trying to twist the foot one way and it won't move. And so my body actually goes. Yeah? So, okay. And now let's just bring the feet closer together and just have the weight in one foot. I mean, a little bit of weight in this one. And just again, just standing. Okay, now what we want to do now is just exactly what we've just done, but with only one foot. So I'm just going to work this foot, the foot that has my weight in it. So what I'm going to do is twist my toes around that way. And because the ground won't move, because my toes are stuck to the floor, so they're not going to move relative to the room, what it does, it actually turns me this way. And then when I twist my toes out this way, it rolls me back. Yeah? So in a sense, what we're trying to do is just ignore the room and just have my own center as the center of the universe. So, because if I'm standing like this and I try and twist my foot this way and I'm just saying, it won't come, then it's because I'm freezing my body in this locked position relative to the room. I'm not allowing it to move, because the body will actually move if you actually work the leg. So this is what we're trying to look at, is how the mind, you know, what they call the superego, is always trying to impose external structures upon you. And those are really the things we're just trying to break down. So everything's relative. Yeah? So the movement is relative. There's no frame of reference other than your own center. Or, if you like, the connection that you have with the other person. So when you're fighting, you forget where you are, you forget the room. The only thing you have interest in is that intense hatred that you have for the other person. So I'm trying to twist the foot this way, and this is turning my body around in the opposite direction. Then I try and twist the foot this way, and it rolls me out. Yeah, so here we're just getting the turn to come from the leg. to come from the twisting of the leg on the ground. Twist this way, twist this way, twist this way. Yeah. And it's a different quality of pain. That's it. So what makes it difficult is as soon as we do something that's a bit new, we want to turn it into what we've already done, what we know from before. So here, to keep it coming from the ground is actually quite difficult because we're so used to turning the waist from the waist that we tend to bring it back there all the time. But here I want it to come from the twist of the foot on the ground. So when I'm twisting my toes in, it's pulling me down. When I'm twisting the toes out, it's turning me away from the foot and I'm coming up. Yeah, so it's just breathing from the ground. But the motor, rather than it being in your dantian or your diaphragm, it's in the foot. So twist, twist. So you just get it going, and then you just let the mind scan the body. So, you know, is my sacrum still heavily hanging down? Am I still suspended here? And at some point, the leg just says, oh, too much. And then you just change over. So this is why God gave us two legs, so we can keep the torture going. So we twist the foot round this way, and that rolls me towards it. Yeah. And then I twist the foot this way. So this is the easy turn, if you like. But it's also the least important. This is the important one, but it's more difficult. So twisting the toes in is actually more difficult than twisting them out, but it's actually more important. So here, so this is becoming like a straight line, and this is folding or making a circle. So I'm twisting the foot on the ground. I'm twisting this way. And it's difficult. You know, this sort of reprogramming the body is really, really difficult. Because you really have to just keep the mind on it. Great. Okay. So working one leg at a time is always difficult. Okay, so just coming back to here. Okay. So now let's just work on. Yeah. So basically, the spine is like an S shape. So we tend to have, so if I exaggerate it, the bum tends to stick out like this, and then the head tends to crane forwards like this. So the spine is normally like an S shape. So in Tai Chi, we're trying to just to minimize that a little. So it's not so exact. So what tends to exaggerate the S shape is the fact that we're under compression all the time. So that my legs are normally pushing up against the bottom of the S, and gravity is pushing down on the top, so the S becomes almost like two folds that are crushed into each other. Yeah? So in Tai Chi, what we're trying to do is just straighten the S out a little bit, not completely, of course, by thinking of this suspended and thinking of the sacrum dropping. So normally, the middle of the spine is under a lot of compression, and it develops a tension that actually, and it's very difficult to let go of that tension because we're so used to it. We tend to feel as though that's our center, that's where we hold on, that's our vision of the world, if you like. So to actually just allow that to stretch out, so really that point in the middle of the spine should actually be under the most tensile stress rather than the most compressive stress. So if I'm properly suspended with my sacrum dropping down, rather than using my legs to crush this upwards, then the spine will sort of straighten out as much as it can into less of an S. Okay, so of course it's never that easy because we have so many tensions that we just don't realize how tense we actually are. Yeah? And it's difficult to let go of them because we feel we're letting go of life itself often. Yeah? So here what we want to do now is just work on the upper part of the S, this part here, which tends to, the depressive part, yeah? The part where if you have a heavy heart and your head's hanging forwards. So we just do that just by reaching up and down. So just letting the hands come up, and you can feel when they get beyond, really when they get beyond the top of your head, really, then that upper spine starts straightening out a little bit. And what you want to make sure here is that your sacrum is hanging down. Yeah, so you don't want all the bend in the upper spine just to cause your bum to flick out like that. Yeah. So you're reaching up. So as you straighten out the upper part, the thoracic spine, the lumbar spine should actually want to just straighten out as well, because those two curves are very much related. So here I'm reaching up and my spine is really hanging down. And where I'm feeling it is sort of here. Yeah? So that part of the spine is normally being compressed all the time by the fact that my legs are pushing against the spine and gravity is pushing it down. So here I just want to feel it opening up because the upper spine is reaching upwards as it should, and the lower spine is reaching downwards as it should. So that middle of the back can just soften a little. And if you're working with someone, just get them to put their hand on it. As soon as someone puts their hands on the part of your body you're trying to work on, it just makes all the difference because you just feel it so much better. In the absence of a hand, you just have to imagine. And then just down again. And then again, just up. Yeah, so once the hands get higher than your head, just feel that part in the thoracic spine straightening, your lumbar spine straightening, and the two pulling away from each other. So the lumbar spine is dropping down, the thoracic spine is pulling up, and that point where the two join up can stretch. For the first time ever, probably, and then down. Another good way is to just, if you've got two people to work with, which is a bit of a luxury, just lie on the ground and get one person holding your feet, the other holding your hands, and they just both lean backwards and stretch. You like being on a rack, yeah? Like just stretching the spine. Yeah, so the sacrum is just, it's like it's hanging, and but it's also sort of moving a bit. And then down again. Step up. Yeah, so the sacrum heavy, hanging down like the plumb line. And then down. Okay, so when it reaches this here especially, you should just feel like your sacrum wants to drop. Yeah, when your sacrum drops, the down chain tends to pull inwards towards the spine. So it doesn't want to fall outwards. So falling up and this dropping of the spine. And now just up and out. So just up, again, just feeling that dropping the sacrum. And then just let the arms just come out. That's it. And now let's just pump from leg to leg a little bit, not moving too much. You're just trying to get a pump of energy coming up into this hand, and then a pump of energy coming up into this hand. Okay. And try and work from the front of the foot. So as you pump, just bring the heel up. Okay. So there's a really good pump action in the foot, much better than the leg really. So my foot is just squeezing. It's squeezing some energy up and into the other hand. So push, push. That's it. So we're wanting the arm to come out of the shoulder and then over and drop down the other side, like it's going over a hill. That's it. So there's real space opens up in the armpit, just like this guy on the wall here. Yeah, so just real openness here that is mirrored by real openness here. So whatever's happening in the arm happens in the leg as well. It's just more difficult to feel in the leg because they're less expressive, if you like. But again, what we would like is for the leg to be even more active than the arm. So just, there's a pump of energy comes up. Just feel the feeling as it passes. You know when you go over the top of the hill sometimes and it feels like your tummy comes up into your mouth or into your heart. It's almost got that feeling. Like something rises up. So you really have to stay down physically. So 1 and whoa. So just to try not to move too much. Yeah. So here, I just imagine someone is pushing down. Someone is trying, everything that you try and do, imagine someone is trying to stop it, especially with your legs. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do really is just push out like that, but I'm not really. I'm not trying to move my body. I'm trying to move the energy through the body. I'm trying to get a ripple passing through me and coming out of this arm. So I have to, first of all, I have to use the leg as though I'm pushing the body, but without moving the body. This is what's difficult. Yeah? And so if I can imagine that someone is holding me in this leg, someone's pushing down on my shoulders so that I can't really move that well, then I can use the leg quite strongly and I'll get something flowing up. And then once I feel the energy passing into the hand, I just follow it and the body moves with it. So the body is always the last thing to move. Yeah. So I'm getting a flow of energy to go, and that's dragging my body along with it. Yeah, so in a sense, you only really start getting energy from the ground when you can feel yourself sort of resisting, something resisting the movements. So I'm trying to move one way, but something is trying to stop me. That's it. Yeah, it's a bit like, squeezing the tube of toothpaste. So when you squeeze the tube of toothpaste, you don't want the tube to move. You just want the toothpaste to move inside the tube. So the same thing here. I want to push the ground, but I don't want it to be enough that it actually moves my body. It almost does. I'm just on that edge of the force slowly building up. If I do it anymore, my body will move. So that point where I'm almost moving, that's where the central equilibrium is really at its finest, and that's where energy really comes out. So if I'm pushing here, yeah, so I'm trying to push my body up, but my body is trying to sink down, then energy will just come out, energy will manifest. Yeah. So I'm almost moving, but then I allow myself to be pulled, because that's the end really. Once the energy gets to the hand, it's over. So I can just then this is almost like an anticlimax. Yeah. So this is all leading up to some sort of release, and then this is just flowing with it. Whoa. Yeah, so you can use the legs against each other. So you can be pushing with this leg and pushing back with this leg. So it just depends how you see it. Yeah, it tends to be a bit forceful that way, but it's better than nothing. So, okay. And now let's try from here again. So just up and out. Okay, now just turn the hands to face down. And now just turn this hand up. Yeah? And just make this shape. Yeah, so you've got two fingers, the middle finger and the index finger pointing upwards, and you're holding the other two fingers with the thumb. Yeah? So we're just making that shape. It just makes the energy a bit more pointed, a bit more focused, if you like. So what I want to do is just get the energy rippling from hand to hand. So the way I do that is just by turning this hand over, this hand. So it's looking up. And what that does, it has the similar effect to actually rolling the shoulder over. Yeah. So both palms facing down to start with. And then I just roll this one over. And then I start it rolling back and let the other one roll over. Yeah. So I'm just moving a ripple of energy along the arms from one hand to the other. It's still coming from the legs, but you're not moving the body too much. Yeah? That's it. So just imagine someone behind you just holding you down, and then you can really use the legs against that without it bringing you up. So rolling this way and rolling it back. That's it. That's it. Yeah, so in John's Tai Chi, like, everything is a contest, everything is a battle. And that generates spirit. Yeah, so John was, if anything, like a spirit master. So everything that he did was with spirit and involved spirit. And it's very very much goes against, modern life, really. So it's uncool to use spirit. So to actually have real intensity and real passion and real vulnerability to what you do is just not very popular. So here we're just trying to really make it a battle. To generate that spirit. Spirit is just fighting energy. Fighting is what makes you win the fight. It's just that ability to just explode and just behave completely unified and so quick and before thought. Just instinct, it's your instincts, your intuition. That's it. Yeah. So all of these exercises, if you do them for a length of time, then they will build up sufficient energy to actually break through into a different dimension of energy. This is the whole idea. And you can't rush it. Yeah, so it has to sort of just let it take its time. So, great. And now let's just round here. And again, just hands in. And down to here. Now let's just try that circuit a few times. So just sending the hands out. And down. So here this is like releasing the spine down, the sacrum down, so that the arms will lift. And then this, if anything, is pushing down with your feet. So basically the feet are just doing exactly what the hands are doing. So the hands are lifting here, so the feet are trying to lift, so that's pulling you down. And then here the hands are going down, so the feet are pushing down, that's bringing you up. So here. Yeah, so just try and think of sinking the body as just being your feet rising. So my feet are trying to lift up, or my knees. You think of the knees of the heart. Whoa. And then it's not it. Feet lifting. Yeah, so if you go for a walk in the afternoon, then just try and just watch what your feet are doing. Just let the feet be active. Yeah, so it should almost feel like the ground is too hot to put your feet down. Yeah, so they're sort of dancing a little bit. There's a sort of almost a panicky dance going on. Pulling the feet up, which brings your body down. Pushing your feet down, which just brings your body up. It's great. And one more. So pulling. Just let's pause here a sec. So again, the sacrum hanging, the head suspended. Okay, well done.